A few years ago, CBN News filmed Denmark's Muslim community marching through the streets of Copenhagen under a banner that reads, "Islam is peace and love." It would be great if it were true, except that a few weeks ago, one of Denmark's most influential leaders dropped a bombshell when he admitted that every mosque in the country is controlled by a radical imam. Even before George W. Bush would walk into a D.C. mosque in the days after 9/11 and say that the attack on the World Trade Center was not the true face of Islam, critics have accused Western leaders of being more concerned with appearing open-minded and tolerant rather than confronting the threat of radical Islam. Because while the vast majority of the world's Muslims are not terrorists, the vast majority of the world's terrorists are Muslims. The U.S. has foiled more than 60 terrorist plots since 9/11. Britain uncovers at least one major terrorist attack every year. But there are other forms of violence from Muslim culture authorities aren't facing. Britain is still reeling from a scandal in which police covered up a Muslim rape gang epidemic for years. One in which primarily Pakistani men made white English girls their sex slaves. For years, British authorities tried to pretend that Muslim sex grooming gangs didn't exist. And so the problem grew, and more young women had their lives ruined. Muslim immigrant gangs in Britain are still so dangerous that when we try to interview rape gang victims, no one would go on camera. And even these friends of the victims insisted that their identities could not be shown.
There's areas now where young girls just can't walk down their own street. People are too scared to come out and say what's going on.
And the real scandal is that this has been going on for 20 years. And there's no policeman who's ever resigned over this.
George Igler is director of the Discourse Institute in Britain.
For 20 years, they just did not investigate. And the reason why they didn't investigate was just the inability to speak freely. The fact that something was taboo meant you couldn't talk about it.
When British soldier Lee Rigby was beheaded in the streets of London by a Nigerian Muslim, one of British Prime Minister David Cameron's first orders of business was to appear open-minded and tolerant.
He didn't look into the camera and say, "I am tripling base security immediately, we will find those who are responsible." He said, "This has got nothing to do with Islam." So all these people realized in an instant they were being lied to.
Cameron had to be corrected by an Islamic terrorist group that said, yes, the Rigby murder was because of Islam. Another issue politicians don't want to discuss is rape. Some are now calling Sweden the rape capital of the world. And in one study of a 5-year period, 4 out of 5 rapes were committed by Muslim immigrants. Norway has had its own rape epidemic against blonde Norwegian women by immigrant men. Some blondes have dyed their hair black or travel only in groups. Some wear Muslim hijabs or headscarves as protection against rape. Kristen Spitznagel is a therapist who has treated some of the victims.
For them, I think the hijab is a symbolic marker which separates the submissive, proper Muslim women from what they see as the Norwegian horse. But when I say horse, I'm really just referring to their own words. This is what they told the journalists.
Muslims and the European left continue their strange political partnership, while they're polar opposites when it comes to women's rights, abortion, and homosexuality. Muslims vote for the left, while the left grows its constituency by encouraging Muslim immigration and the spread of Islamic values.
Third world immigrants to Denmark, something like 95% vote for the left. If they can open the floodgates for third world immigration, they can more or less secure and import their own voters.
America, too, has been knowingly trying to advance the cause of Muslim radicals in Syria and Egypt. President Obama and Republican Senator John McCain have been pushing Congress to allow the U.S. to help the Syrian rebel movement, which includes al-Qaeda terrorists. And the president supported the ousted Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt against the will of the majority of Egyptians. It's what's been happening in virtually every Western nation since 9/11. Politicians not just pretending radical Islam is not the enemy, but actually helping it spread. Dale Hurd, CBN News.